Welcome back. You're still watching Nile Cruise. The Education Minister Mahmoud Abu Nasr discussed with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi the ministry's plan to develop education, which includes 15 programs and extends through until 2013. The first point in the strategy discussed, which was published in a number of newspapers, proposes school nutrition programs to help improve abilities of students. During the meeting, CC stressed on the importance of support from the food industry to realize this plan. As for the development of students, the plan includes providing free extra classes, starting an educational channel, and decreasing the illiteracy rate. The strategy also includes preparing 60,000 students of technical education for the Gulf market. CC has supported the development of technologies used in schools in collaboration with the UAE in a joint project previously announced. We'll be speaking about this topic and more regarding the education. We're joined with the education technology expert, Hatem Salam. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. Also, I'd like to mention that you are the CEO of a software development company that's related with the education technology, and we're going to be using both your experiences in tackling this issue and learning more about education.
Sure.
So let's first start with, from your insights about what is available in terms worldwide and how technology is integrated with education with a big, perspective towards supporting, the education sector in general.
Okay. If there is one pillar that everybody all over the world agrees upon, it will be that education needs development. I mean, this will be happening, and you will listen to that statement coming from like the very developed countries as well as the underdeveloped countries. And people are not satisfied with the outcomes of the educational processes all over the world. And this is the opportunity, because the whole world is actually standing on almost the same feet to realize this vision. And people looked at technology as a way to disrupt the current education processes and help transform these educational systems, and with the hope of having like different outcomes. And actually this is where technology will come and play a certain role. I would believe that this is especially coming with the change management aspect of the educational current systems all over the world. To have a very specific example about that, think now about the uniqueness of the children. The education systems are designed for mass production, to have like people educated the same way, to have like mass production of people that can work in. This is a way of doing education that's suitable for the industrial ages, like 80 years back, like the World War I or II. But now with the knowledge industry all over the place, we need different outcomes. We need people who we can watch for their uniqueness and harvest this uniqueness in the best way possible. And to do that, we need to have like individualized learning plans for each and every student. We need a way to understand the uniqueness and to tackle this uniqueness.
Yes.
And without technology, we cannot do that. We don't have the capacity to do that.
Let's jump into the challenges, because you have addressed and you have expertise in a number of education systems worldwide, and I understand you also have the lecture, you're a lecturer, so you're coming from the education background, definitely. So there is a lot of challenges when you are using information technology, especially in the education sector, and I think you know it all. So how in the emerging markets are you, is there ways to tackle such challenges?
Okay, I'll start with the challenges at the policymakers level. On the policymakers level, actually everybody agrees that we want to inject money to help the education system develop.
Yes.
But how can we measure the outcomes from this money thrown? I mean, what's the ROI for our investments in education on a nationwide example? And here actually all the nations, I mean the very rich nations as well as like the poor nations, they have these needs. And actually what we started to do and what we've seen the value for to tackle this challenge is to have the business intelligence solution that will help the governments and decision makers to understand and realize the return on investment that they are making and make sure that they direct that to the best or the most prioritized items they have. On another level, there is a problem about the content. It starts with printing the content, the amount of money it actually it takes. So for example, in Egypt alone, we have more than 2 billion Egyptian pounds spent on printing the content for public schools. This is enormous. And we can just save them. and even make lives easier for people. I mean, imagine your child goes to school with this very heavy bag on his shoulders or her shoulders, and instead, and you still print and you pay the 2 billion Egyptian pounds, and you pay a lot for the bags for the children themselves, and nobody is actually at rest. What can we achieve if we could electronize and digitize this content in a way that's not only equivalent to what we have right now, but it will be more interactive, and it will emphasize the understanding of the needs of each and every student, and it will address the real need of each and every student, and it will be linked to curriculum standards and outcomes and learning objectives, and it will result definitely into a better outcome from an educational process point of view. This is just one challenge that can be solved using educational technology. Think also about another example. In a classroom with the high capacity of people in emergent markets, I mean in Egypt, how many students are there in a typical classroom in a government school? It would be more than 50, 60 students, okay?
Yes.
And do you imagine in 45 minutes in a class session, you will have an opportunity for each and every student to express him or herself in a way that gives the teacher a way of understanding what this student is all about?
Yes.
This is very hard to achieve with the current capacities. But imagine if we can have like a very simple device for this student to vote for answers to certain multiple choice questions, or even to write answers to long questions. And still, the teacher will have a report about all the students. The students will not be shy to talk into the classroom. We'll have a contribution coming from each and every student. This is much better. This is just multiplying the results that we are having right now by multiples and multiples. Okay.
Yes.
Imagine the types of questions that we are throwing at our children, and how can we actually emphasize the problem-solving capabilities of these children. And
the interactivity between the students.
Exactly, and having like teams working on problems to solve. How can we achieve all of that without having a technology, and without even affecting what's happening? Affecting like the budget from a family, or how can we achieve that? These are all questions that can be answered by technology. But again, technology is not a goal by itself. It's just a means, and we need to think about it as like our objective is to enhance education and to transform education. And how can we achieve that using technologies at hand?
That was exactly the question that I was going to ask you. I was thinking, about the segment, thinking about the education sector and the challenges that are existing for ages now. There is determination to enhance and develop the education in Egypt, but it is really struggling. So I was thinking that maybe it's beyond the government's control or the government's efforts. They need private sector and consultants to support in order to be moving towards a better education system in Egypt. Would you agree, and how do you think this should be implemented?
Yeah, actually I would agree on the principle, definitely, and I would say that to achieve that we need to create a winning strategy for every stakeholder that we want to engage in this whole process. I mean, if we want the private sector to come and invest in education, we need to have ROI for that. It's not just inviting them to volunteer and do that. This can happen for a certain period to achieve certain objectives. But I mean, to have sustainable solution for that, we need to create a value for these people to come and invest. And one good example of that, for example, is to look at the outcomes that, for example, manufacturers are looking for certain skill sets to be available. How can we achieve these skill sets through a schooling system? Do we need to wait till the student goes from K to 12 to the higher education to be able to work in certain factories? No, we don't actually. We can use the money coming from factories into training and development and build schools specialized. And we used to have these kind of ideas in Egypt for a long time. What we need to do actually is to implement on a large scale and to have a scalability module for that and have management system behind it.
Yes. I understand that you have the experience of several education systems. If you can speak to us a little bit about, how does the future look like?
Yeah, well, that's a very interesting question actually, because to be very honest, I would not claim that I know the future. I don't know how it will look like.
But you know the developed, the developed education system.
What I will do actually, I will try to project on what we are seeing and what we've seen in the past few years and what happened all over the world, how changes happened actually to education system.
Yes.
So, for example, what we are seeing now, people struggle with developing teachers all over the world and to have like enough teachers to be enrolled in the education system. And one very innovative way of doing that, what's called flipped learning. And flipped learning is a pedagogical terminology that ensures having the pressure coming from the students themselves to help the teachers develop. So, for example, we do agree that the new generations are more familiar with using technology.
More than the teachers.
More than the teachers.
Yes.
So why don't we use that? Why don't we leverage that? Why don't we use the children themselves to teach their teachers about technology?
Wow.
And this was like a very good experiment that happened in Brazil and Portugal. And actually it proved itself to be like very successful. And not only successful in terms of measuring the level of skills that the teachers achieve, but also in enhancing the relationship between the teacher and the student and engaging both of them in a learning process that they are both learning through together. Yeah, together. Also, how can we shift, and this is a very big thing that's happening right now, shift the role of the teacher in a classroom from being an instructor into being a facilitator. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
And actually,
this is a new way of education in general. Yes.
Exactly. And with that in mind, this means that the teacher is not confined by any means to certain curriculum and very small amount of knowledge that we need to transfer. It's the sky is just the starting point, not even the limit for the knowledge that can be done. And also to tackle all types of what's called extended epistemological education. So education doesn't happen only by memorizing things. Education happens by experimenting things. Education happens by presenting things. Education happens by practicing these things. So, for example, instead of, I'll give a very specific example. In Benyat, for example, here in Egypt, we know that most of the population there are working with furniture and manufacturing furniture. So if I'm having certain mathematical curriculum or I have science curriculum, why don't I involve what's happening in this society for the children to relate to and have real examples, real life examples for them to work with, to give a value for the parents to send their children to school, for the children themselves, and for the teachers to be able to have like an easy job to do, to teach the students about things that they know about already. Okay, and the same can happen in Alexandria, can happen in Egypt, I mean, on any level. This can be customized.
That's very true. Yeah. Finally, Hatem Salam, education technology expert, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your insights and your opinion. Thank you. Let's move on now for this upcoming break and returning back with more.